I do think this set is less exciting than 4 and 3. I think in the development side, we ended up having to be a little rushed as we transitioned people, as we got new people on the team. We were a little behind on resources. We were in the unfortunate situation where our lead set designer was also in charge of the set mechanic, which meant neither was getting the full attention it needed. And so in the end, we ended up having to sort of rely on good traits, but sort of obvious traits is what I'll say. I think we ended up having to do, a lot of stat stuff, a lot of like stuff that was within the rules. And I don't think we did enough rule bending. These are things that go outside your expected parameters. The reality is I don't feel good about it. I think super units are fun. Let me be clear. I think super units are probably one of those things that in some shape or form will exist in almost every TFT set. That part is great. I think, though, that when you try to make something be good at everything, I always call this the red mage problem. The red mage problem, to put it really simply, is in old Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy 1, there were black mage, white mage, and red mage. Black mage was the best damage dealer, had no healing. White mage was the best healer, had no damage dealing. And red mage could do both, but not as good as black and white mage. And the reality is, nobody wanted the red mage. Nobody wanted the red mage because nobody wants somebody who's mediocre at everything. That's kind of how I feel about super units. It's like, if you try to make it be good at both, it ends up being not good at either. We have not taken the stance that the Bill Gates comp should not exist. That is false. What I have taken the stance on is that the Bill Gates comp should not be winning 100% of games. Because as much as, again, I know this is controversial, sorry, but I don't think it takes significantly more skill. It takes a little more skill to just get a good comp early, fast 9, and then buy all the expensive units and throw them on the board. That doesn't take much depth either. There needs to be choices at the end game. The worst version of this was set 4, and I know a lot of players liked this, I'm sorry, but set 4, you literally threw in every single 5 cost. That can't be the correct answer. The idea of a super tank that is unkillable is bad for TFT. The idea of a super tank that can tank for a long time and then dies, very good. We need those, right? Like, the way Witty phrased it that I think is perfect is a tank's job is to prevent a lot of damage, buying your team time, and then to die. That is what a tank should do. A tank should eventually die. And so we need to balance super tanks to kind of fit that job, where it's like they tank for a while and then they die. Some decent examples of this is like Sejuani. How do I feel about invisible mechanics? If done correctly, invisible mechanics can be fine. So overall, I think invisible mechanics are actually acceptable, again, if done correctly. How do I feel about the current matchmaking system? Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I think it's a shit system right now. I think the fact that there are players who can manipulate it is incorrect. I think the fact it requires an add-on is incorrect. And I think it's bullshit, to be frank. I'm personally in favor of this. I think the TFT rank system is one of the areas that we take for granted right now and is probably the most ripe for improvement because it is the core experience. TJ and I have talked about this a few times. that we actually think it's one of the biggest things that's secretly causing players to stop playing the game. More than balance, more than champ design, more than set design. It's like, if the game says, hey, you can keep playing, but fuck you, you lose rewards, why would you keep playing? And it feels really bad. So I'm definitely in favor of this for sure. Need to. This could be the fog of war at 5 seconds. I think that's been the most common version we've talked about, but we kind of agree that the last minute APM swaps is really bad for the game. Even the stuff people are doing now, it's like fun to watch, but like it's not good for the game. The whole like hold a unit and tab to their board and at the very last second drop it in, like that's just not correct. So I do think we need to do something to that. Again, it's another one of those things on the back burner that hopefully we can get to as we staff up and can tackle more of these side projects. Comps like these are great. They're hard to design for in our current time frame because, again, things are tricky and hard to think through. But I'm going to call out Bulldozer. I think Bulldozer is one of the best comps to exist in the first half of Set 5 because it was unique. And it was a unique interaction between Pantheon and Varus, who have no business being in the same comp, and figuring out ways to get them to work together. I think TfT is at its best if we have a few of those. If we can get more of those, that is a good thing. Unit synergy comps are great. They're also hard to think through, and we also have to be careful because you don't want a situation where the units only shine when they're in that synergy. Varus and Pantheon, thankfully, were good without each other and good with each other. We have screwed this up in the past sometimes, though, where it's like, this champ is terrible unless you have this other champ. Should reroll cost 1 gold in the early stage? Or should you just get a free reroll in stage 2? Or maybe you get reroll tokens and you can use 3 of them in the early game and they disappear, or whatever. Like, there are solutions out there, but it's another one of those things that, like, frankly, I just haven't had the time to really test and try out. But I do think early game in particular, there's just not much agency. And I think that's bad. I think it kind of, like, if you look at, again, like, if you look at 3-3 where everyone's health is at, I don't think the people with low health did anything wrong. In fact, if anything, a few of them probably did something right where they're like, I've purposely chosen to kind of play a weaker board and econ more. But it's just, it's very out of your control, and it shouldn't be. One of the ways to solve this that I believe we need to do is we need to come up with new drops that we can give you at PvE rounds that aren't inflating the economy. Things that aren't gold, Nikos, things like that. I have some ideas, can't spoil them now, but I do think that's the way to make these PvE rounds feel more satisfying, is come up with new types of drops. Holy crap. Feel like a goddamn machine here.